Welcome to Prepare to Survive, Pinellas County's E-Series presentation on disaster preparedness. I'm your host, Tom Iavino of the Pinellas County Communications Department. Many residents choose not to evacuate before a storm because they are worried. Who will help direct traffic during evacuation bottlenecks? How could they get back into Pinellas County if they have to leave to seek shelter? Who will respond if people start looting storm-damaged homes in the aftermath? Joining us today is Captain Halle of the Special Operations Division of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, talking about the vital role that law enforcement plays in disaster preparedness and recovery. Welcome, Captain Halle. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about the law enforcement response. We had an earlier presentation talked about fire rescue. What is law enforcement's role before, during, and after a disaster?
Okay. Before the storm, and typically as the approach of hurricane season prior to June 1st, what we will do is we will prepare all of our equipment and make sure it's all functional. We have a lot of equipment that we can, that are kind of special purpose equipment that we would deploy specifically in a storm. It has some other uses, but primarily in hurricanes. We would make sure all that equipment is functioning. We would prepare, we also have deployment teams that we send to other parts of the state and the country.
Yeah, to get that valuable experience.
Absolutely. Make sure our lists are up to date and just kind of get ready. Kind of knock the dust off of anything and get ready for the approach of the season. Okay.
Now, you know, when we talk about the storm starting to threaten the area, you know, we've got something that's maybe 3 or 4 days out. We're under the watch. People are starting to get nervous and anxious. There are a lot of questions people have. You know, for instance, you know, the traffic bottlenecks, bridge closures. How's law enforcement prepared to help facilitate that evacuation? And what are some of the roles you guys have?
Sure. We have a comprehensive emergency management plan in Pinellas County, and specifically addresses the getting people off the beaches and out of the evacuation areas. All of the law enforcement agencies in the county have a role in that. There is about 75 intersections that are controlled by law enforcement, basically to get people from the west to the east and away from the storm. We also, as far as personnel-wise, when the storm is approaching, we go to what we call an Alpha and a Bravo shift, which is a fancy way of saying it's 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
So deputies will work 12 hours, be off, and come back in another 12 hours. And that kind of helps us with our staffing, and it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck for the most part.
Now, I figured in the event of a major disaster like that, it's going to be critical. Now, bridge closures are a question a lot of people have. You know, you've got the Skyway closes at a very low wind speed. I know that decision is made by the Florida Highway Patrol.
Yes.
But what would necessitate a bridge closure?
Well, again, back to the comprehensive emergency plan. The bridge closures, and we have about a dozen movable bridges in Pinellas County.
Okay.
Most of those, when the winds are to a point, and typically it's gale force or tropical storm force winds, around 40 miles per hour. Those bridges are closed, and they go into a pattern of either a half hour, open on the half hour, or open on the hour, with one exception, and that's Johns Pass Bridge that stays open. But so in that case, boats that are trying to get in will queue up in a line, and then every hour or half hour, then they can get them in. Okay.
And then the larger bridges like the Howard Franklin, the Courtney Campbell, I mean, those bridges, obviously, you get water over the approaches.
Yes.
You can't get out on it.
It's just not safe to negotiate the bridge, so they're closed.
Okay. Now, you know, one of the things that people are reluctant to evacuate, one of the reasons why, is they're afraid of their stuff might get stolen. Somebody might break into their home and steal things when they're not there. Really not the wisest decision. I mean, things can be replaced, but your life can't if you're there on the beaches when the storm comes in.
Absolutely. They're just possessions. They're just stuff, and for the most part, everything can be replaced. The whole point, and we encourage people to evacuate if they're in an evacuation zone. There may be some piece, jewelry, painting, something that has a lot of family history. That's something you can take with you when you go. The big screen TVs, things like that, they're all replaceable.
It's tough to stick that 60-inch TV in the back of the car to go and evacuate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now the storm's coming in. We're starting to talk about the arrival of the storm. The winds are starting to pick up, 40-mile-an-hour plus. How do you guys stay safe? I mean, I know you're out there and you're required to do a lot of things, but at a certain point, it's too dangerous for law enforcement agents to be on the road.
Yes, and again, we're back to around about that tropical storm, gale force winds are at around 40. We'll have, at this point, we would have in operation an emergency communication center We have our shift commanders out on the street. They make the judgment call when the winds get too bad. We have predetermined shelters that the deputies will go to. They may go to fire stations, or they may shelter at their homes, depending on where they live and if they live in a non-evacuation area.
And that's critical, because if you put those officers at risk, they may become victims themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's not helping anybody after the storm passes.
Yes.
So if people call 911 and they say they need help, they're pretty much on their own at that point once the winds start howling 70, 80, 90 miles an hour.
Yes, and I can speak from a personal experience back to 1985 in Hurricane Elena.
Ooh.
When I was my first year as a police officer in my early 20s, working the beach, and it was a mandatory evacuation, and we tried to get people out. Some people didn't evacuate, and I can tell you when the winds got bad, our phone lines lit up, and people realized they were in trouble, and they were at a point where we really couldn't help them at that point.
So the message there, and it can't be driven home hard enough, is evacuate when there's still time and the weather's still calm.
Absolutely.
Don't wait to that last minute, because you may not be able to get out, and nobody will be there to help you.
You're going to get to a point where you're on your own. You're just going to have to ride out the storm.
And that's not where you want to be.
It's not where you
We've
want to
had
be.
we've talked to people who've been through storms that never want to repeat that more than once. Now the storm is passing. Okay, we've got, the winds are starting to die down. The damage has been done. Of course, everybody wants to get back home, see the damage, but there are reasons why people can't get back home immediately, down power lines, things like that. How is the system worked out where, law enforcement controls, they make sure that people don't go into dangerous areas? What should people do when they come to a checkpoint like that, too?
Sure. Well, immediately after the storm passes, there's going to be search and rescue, which is going to be primarily led by fire rescue. Law enforcement will support in that role. Another thing, and you mentioned the down power lines, people don't think as first responders as the utility companies, Duke Energy in this case. Law enforcement and fire cannot go in and do their jobs when it's not safe for them to go. So the down power lines have to be addressed by the utility companies. Everyone wants to get back to their home. For most people, their home is their largest investment.
Sure, and it's their castle,
and
too.
It's their castle.
Yeah.
They want to get back. They want to see how much is left, if they had any damage at all. But if they go when it's not safe, or they try to get in when it's not safe, they can just compound the situation for law enforcement and fire rescue. Yeah,
we don't add more victims to the storm total, because people are being careless.
Absolutely.
In dangerous situations. Now, sometimes if the disaster is large enough, there may be law enforcement agents brought in from outside of the area in a mutual aid assistance plan. When these officers are at a checkpoint, they may not be familiar with the area. Yes. How do you guys go about briefing these people, getting them up to speed, making sure they're able to assist with this?
Right. And as far as the mutual aid, we do have in-county mutual aid.
Okay.
And we have statewide mutual aid through the Florida Sheriff's Task Force, the Florida Association of Chiefs of Police. The Pinellas County area and really the Tampa Bay area are probably not going to be where the resources are coming from, because they're going to all have their own issues to deal with.
Sure.
So likely it may be Miami Police Department, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, you name it, in Florida.
Sure, Jacksonville, wherever from the state.
Could be coming to help. And if it's bad enough, it could be from outside the state of Florida.
Okay.
Under an EMAC agreement. But as far as the officers, and I know deputies experienced this during Hurricane Andrew, where they went down there and not familiar with the area. And not only that, there's no street signs.
Sure, you can't really just look for the nearest street sign. It's not there.
It's not there. So it may be a point of just taking spray paint and spray painting the name of the street on a curb. That may be a way to identify the intersection. In those cases, we will put local law enforcement that is familiar with the area with outside agencies, so at least they have that person that's going to help them get around.
Okay, so they'll have that working knowledge.
Yes.
And I'm sure technology's got to help, too. GPS location and things like that have to help make it a lot easier than it was back in 1992.
Absolutely.
Now, the equipment you guys use when you're out there after a disaster, some heavy rescue type of stuff, or is it designed to help assist with search and rescue, or are there other assets out there?
Well, other assets. The heavier equipment is going to come from, for example, Pinellas County Utilities.
Okay.
The municipal cities are going to have their own equipment for debris clearing, that kind of thing. We do have generators and equipment like that. We have Humvees that we can use for. We just recently acquired from the United States Army that we can use for going through flood areas and rescuing people, and even patrolling areas if we have to.
Okay. Now, post-disaster patrols, that's obviously going to be a big deal. In many cases, there might be a curfew. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a breakdown in what we normally expect, on a typical sunny day. What's the stress like on the officers when they come through in a situation like that? I know the people are in shock, the damage to their neighborhoods. What's the stress like for the officers?
Well, understand that all of our deputies live here in Pinellas County, or at least in the adjoining counties.
Sure.
But for majority of them live in the county. They own homes in the county, and they're under the same. They have families. So their stress level. They're working to try to make others safe. Well, their home is, what's left of my home. And during Hurricane Katrina, we sent deputies up to Pass Christian, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Their police department was leveled, and a lot of the officers' homes were gone. So, I mean, there is that stress that they have to deal with, but at the same time, they have to do their job, and they all know. They all signed on for this job. They know.
And that's the challenge right there. So in a situation like that, you've got law enforcement coming in, that post-disaster thing. People are going to be eager to get back. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of concerns about re-entry, people wanting to come back. What can people do to expedite the re-entry to certain areas of the county?
Sure. As far as re-entry, we're going to look for people that truly live in the area at our checkpoints. When they come to our checkpoints, we want to make sure that somebody just doesn't want to get out to the beach just to be an onlooker and see what kind of damage has been done.
Sure.
So they're going to need a driver's license, maybe a utility bill, vehicle registration, something with that address on it that proves they do in fact live in that area.
Okay, so they're going to be looking. The officers are going to be looking to make sure that you actually do belong in this area.
Yes. Okay,
so it's going to be a situation like that. When we're talking about this post-disaster environment, I mean, it takes a long time to get back to normal. I mean, are you guys prepared for a long duration event?
Well, we have never seen anything like this, so we prepare as much as we can. I guess hopefully we'll never have to know.
Let's hope.
But we are prepared to stay on our Alpha Bravo, our 12-hour shifts, as long as necessary to manage. And again, we're not in this alone. Mutual aid from either inside the county or outside the county or outside the state will be there to help us as well, as long as that's necessary.
And it's an interesting point you brought up about the mutual aid. These agreements are set way in advance of the arrival of a storm.
Yes.
Nobody's trying to improvise after something's happened.
Correct.
So this is and the cooperation between the different city police departments and the sheriff's office, everything's on board. Everybody's on board when a situation like this happens, correct?
Absolutely. And again, back to Hurricane Andrew, we sent deputies to Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Charlie. We've sent deputies to the Panhandle for hurricanes. So we have deployment teams that are also prepared to go to assist other areas in the state and even other states if they're victim to a natural disaster.
Yeah, I can just remember going down to Port Charlotte after Hurricane Charlie and seeing Pinellas County Sheriff's Office cruisers next to ones from Orange County and other areas around the state. Captain, we've got about a minute left. What is the most important thing you want the residents to know about the law enforcement's role and how they can help?
Well, the biggest help, and again, going back to personal experience during Hurricane Helena, and which really didn't hit Pinellas County. It stayed about 90 miles offshore.
It brushed us.
But
it was no
although
hit.
on the beach we did get some damage, and again, people were scared because they didn't evacuate and realized that they should have. I think people wait for that doomsday scenario, the Category 5 that's going to come into the mouth of Tampa Bay during high tide and just cause all this massive destruction. The reality is that's probably not going to happen. It's very low odds of that ever happening. What is more probable is a level Category 1, 2, or maybe a 3 hurricane coming in, and those people that just think because it's not that big 5 that they can just throw a dozen sandbags around their home and maybe tape their windows, which we know they shouldn't do anyway,
Sure.
but and think they're going to ride it out when they're in an evacuation area is just wrong thinking.
And you've got to have that plan well in advance. Thank you, Captain Halle. If you'd like to see a repeat of this presentation, visit www.pinellascounty.org/eSeries. If you'd like more information on how to prepare for hurricanes or other potential disasters, visit the Pinellas County Emergency Management homepage at www.pinellascounty.org/emergency. And if you have any questions about today's topic, be sure to email them to ema@pinellascounty.org. We'll get right back with you. Join us again for the next Prepare to Survive E-Series. Stay safe.